All right. So after you have a website that people actually want to be on and they want to carry through further, they know what you're offering and how to get what you're offering to solve their problem. How are you getting people there? The next topic in this conversation is going to be social media marketing. We're going to break it down between your social media pages and actual paid ad spend on social media. I know that it's overwhelming. There's new ones coming out, TikTok and Rumble and Snapchat and all these things that you probably don't even have on your phone. So how do you even start using your Facebook and your Instagram appropriately, right? We can't ignore it. Every single study out there shows that if you do not have a social media page with social media following, you are not engaging with your customers in a way that is going to carry a long-term relationship and a repeat customers to your organization.
Yeah.
So let's start by talking about that organic social media posting and what your pages should look like.
And I think it's a good thing to point out that we have with us Ryan Scheel, who is a master at building enormous social media pages with huge amounts of followers. So really listen to what he has to say about the organic side of social media.
Sure. So I think one of the first things to do is what can social media do? What can it do and what can it not do? Okay. One of the first things to think about is in building a good social media following, again, is, and we talked about this on websites, is how is this beneficial to the person who's going to see it? How does it engage them? And then also, how does it leverage the platform itself? I think understanding the motivation of these platforms like Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, why do they exist? Well, they exist to create and aggregate audiences that they can sell advertising space into. So what does that mean? That means they want people to stay on their platform and consume more and more content so that they are then visible to advertisers. It's the same concept as a TV show. If you put out a bad TV show and people turn it off, you're not going to see your advertisements for your fast food or your laundry detergent, right? Social media is a TV show about the people who use it. And that's why people go back. So you got to make sure that your content is engaging and people want to go back and back to it. So if you're just on your social media, again, only posting things about yourself and it's not aspirational. So it's just like, hey, here's us at lunch. Not, hey, here's us achieving something. Either giving somebody a goal of what they want to do or giving them something that they want to dig deeper into, your social media is going to intrinsically fail every time.
Ryan, what is one of the so people ask this question to us all the time, especially if they're new to social media or have kind of a page or a few accounts that have been neglected. They're like, hey, what is the appropriate amount of, how frequently should I be posting on my social media accounts? What would you say to that?
Well, realistically, as much as possible, because it is kind of a scattershot approach. The more content, the more pitches you see, the more chances you got to swing the bat. And that's kind of the concept. But I mean, at least daily, if people go to your social media account and it's a ghost town, it's like going to a nightclub with no one there. Why would they stay? So you want to have something that's active, something that's engaging, something that's lively. So at least daily, if you can manage multiple times daily with different forms of content. Sometimes it's going to be a link to something interesting. Sometimes it's going to be a picture post. Sometimes it might be a share from something else with a little bit of commentary about it, but then inviting the question. So for example, if you're in, I don't know, health insurance, you could post an article from a major newspaper about a change in health insurance law and then say, this is an interesting change. How do you think it'll affect people? You want to invite people to make comments, engage, because again, that's what will basically tell the platform people are engaging and that this is content worth promoting and releasing to more people.
Now, I could imagine a bunch of our listeners are like, I only post one time a week or once every other week. How in the world am I going to be able to start posting every single day? And I would say work towards that, right? That have a content marketing plan or a social media content plan, which starts with 2 or 3 times a week. But to Ryan's point, you'd be better off not having a Facebook or Instagram icon on your website if you're not posting on that, because there is nothing like a nail in the coffin than if somebody clicks on your Facebook page, they go over, they see 1,000, 2,000 followers, and they see that it's been 5 months since the last time you posted anything on your page. Immediately they're like, well, you don't care about this page, you don't really care about me. And that's what's really important. And I would just say, finally, just to kind of recap, that is that your page is about them as well. What problems are you solving? How are you, as a guide, as a Gandalf, helping them to that next step? And as long as you have this kind of overarching, let's call it theme on your social media pages, it's going to start working for you and not working against you.
Mm-hmm. You know, and then again, there's going to be 2 types of motivations for you to post. One is nurturing and engaging the people who are already following your page, keeping them interested, keeping the magic alive with them. The other is about finding content that will attract new people. And those pieces of content are not always the same. So you want to have a strategy for this type of content is maybe going to have a better chance of people sharing and engaging new people. You know, one of the, axioms I say often is that you don't ask people, to get married on a first date. You introduce yourself. So you need to have content that introduces yourself. That's hey, do you want to come and have a cup of coffee? Do you want to learn a little bit more? I mean, it's a discernment process, just as it is in most things in life, for people to become engaged with the brand. Now, it's probably not as dramatic as marriage or a religious vocation, but the human mind still works in the discernment process in the same way when they're considering a brand as they do buying a car, a house, getting married, etc. I want to become aware and familiar. I want to learn a little bit more. I want to be engaged and captivated, and then maybe I'll move to a deeper and deeper relationship with this person, brand, or life decision.
Yeah, how do you let's keep with the analogy of courting and marriage, right? How do you get to know someone and make the decision that they're right for you to marry? It happens through conversations and time spent with that person. Think of social media as an ongoing conversation that you're having with prospective customers and existing customers. You have to do a lot of talking. You have to talk regularly. Sometimes the other person won't respond. Sometimes they will. But you can't speak to them once per week, once per month, once per every 6 months. It needs to be ongoing. When we think about the different channels that we have to reach customers or folks who want to engage with your organization, there are different tolerances with different channels. No one wants to get an email twice a day from your organization. They're going to unsubscribe right away. That is overkill. But it's expected when it comes to social media. It's more informal, it's more conversational. So structure your content plan, as John said, in that way. What kind of things can you talk to your customer about? You could talk about yourself, but talk about yourself in the way in which it benefits the customer, with the customer in mind. There should be many, many, many things that you can share with your customers: videos, pictures, quotes, different things that help them understand, is this brand right for me? Or is this organization have what I'm looking for? But do it in that conversational way. It doesn't have to be perfectly polished and buttoned up. I think people like the authenticity that social media offers, especially some of these new platforms like TikTok and Snapchat, where they like to see kind of behind the veil, who are these people that I'm engaging with? And that will help them fall in love with your brand even more.
Before we shift to actual paid advertising in the social media realm, I want to ask you guys, how many social media platforms should we have our brand on? What's some guidelines that you can help? Because I can think of, again, our listeners, and they're like, okay, well, I've got Facebook, Instagram. Do I need Twitter? Do I need Pinterest? Do I need to figure out TikTok and things like that? And these are all really good questions. And I think some guiding principles can really help get started.
I think it depends on what kind of organization you are and who your audience is. So if you are maybe going towards young parents, you have to look at the demographics of who uses which platform. So we're going to presume young parents who are starting to make decisions about either their children or their life going forward are going to be somewhere between the age of, let's say, 26 and 35. Well, demographics would show that demographic typically goes towards Instagram. Okay. Now, if you're going towards a more mature audience and people who are making, decisions about, financial matters, or, who have a larger purchasing power for maybe a e-commerce type site, well, your demographics probably going to skew more towards Facebook or Twitter, because those are a little bit of an older demographic. Now, if you're doing something in youth ministry, or something that you're trying to actually target people between the ages of maybe 18 and 25, well, then you're going to have some overlap with Instagram, but then you're going to be looking at Snapchat and TikTok. Again, it's about which demographic you serve, and then understanding who congregates on these platforms and what the typical age ranges are.
I would also say that don't try to launch robust social media campaigns or have a robust social media presence on multiple platforms all at the same time. That is definitely a recipe for disaster. Start with one, learn how to master that and do it really well, then build onto that. It would be worse to have a presence or a pseudo presence in multiple places and really only have a half-hearted effort happening. So like Ryan said, find the one that makes the most sense for the audience that you're after, and then invest heavily in that, get that really ramped up, full of great content, lots of engagement, before you then decide that it's time to step into a second or a third.
Excellent. And I would just add that when we're looking at paid advertising, if you want to start doing paid advertising, that's also important discernment on which platforms you're going to spend your time organically. So Facebook and Instagram, Facebook owns Instagram. That is going to be the largest social media advertising platform in the world. And so you're going to want to have some pages on Facebook and Instagram, because if you want to start running paid ads, that's where you're going to want to start to get the best bang for your buck. And so that's also something important. So I think just summing that up, start with a couple, that really match your demographics so that you can learn successfully. The final thing I'm going to say is that social media, organic posting is the long game plan. It is important, but to temper expectations, you're not going to see in 3 or 4 weeks all of a sudden conversions happening to your website. We're looking at the 9-month, 10-month, year, and beyond. But there are some amazing Instagram platforms, Catholic in nature, that are constantly bringing in customers and re-engaging with their customers. It took them a long time. It took them many months to get there, but now it's an incredibly dependable part of their marketing, multi-channel marketing approach. So shifting a little bit now to paid advertising and this idea of tempering expectations and what to do and what not to do. Let's start and focus on Facebook and Instagram, because I think that's the place that most people like to look at with paid advertising. It makes the most sense. However, when you actually get into that ad platform, it can be as confusing as all get up. So where would we start within kind of a paid ad approach?
I think the first thing is why would we advertise, and what are we trying to market on one of these paid platforms on Facebook or Instagram? Again, if we go back to the analogy of courtship, this is even more of a consideration. You don't want to run an ad to people who know nothing about you and ask them to make a purchase from you. That is something that very, very, very rarely happens, because they have no familiarity, no trust in your brand. So why would we run ads? Typically, it's to offer them overwhelming value for something to get them to get to know you. That's like putting on your best suit or having your hair done and going out and making sure that you present yourself in the best possible light to get a phone number, to get a first date. So maybe, for example, you are, you have a homeschool product that you want to offer, a course or something along those lines, or a day planner. Give them a free version of something. Hey, here's 10 things that people who homeschool struggle with. All you have to do is, for this amazing value, this very cool thing that solves a very specific problem, is give us your email address. Now, when their email address is in your system, you have multiple opportunities to continue that conversation with them that are free. But when you try to put all your that whole conversation, that whole life cycle of that getting to know you in one paid ad, typically you're throwing money down a hole. Do you guys want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, yes, I do. If I can take one step back, though, I think something that is important for folks they may be asking the question about is, I'm already on Facebook and Instagram. Why would I need to pay to also be on Facebook and Instagram? And I think this is something that's interesting to understand. As Facebook and Instagram have evolved over their life cycle, they have made it harder and harder for you to reach your full audience without paying money. If you have a decent sized following on social media, you may be scratching your head going, golly, I've got all these people that are engaged, that are following my page or fans of my business. Am I only getting, a dozen impressions or a few likes here or there, no real shares whenever I put content out? What is going on? And it's Facebook forcing you to spend money to reach your full audience. So that's why it is important to have an advertising budget, and it's very smart to spend that advertising budget with Facebook and Instagram so that you can tap into that full audience and find other people who have the same attributes as the folks that are in your audience. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because that is a head scratcher for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And it is a very real thing and important to understand.
Yeah, great. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because it really is important to understand today. We're not in 2016. 2016, your organic post would have gotten so much further, not today. And so the other thing that I like to talk about in line with what Ryan was talking about is there's two types of marketing, right? There's disruptive marketing and there's intentional search-based marketing. On Facebook, you're doing something that's called disruptive marketing. Nobody goes to Facebook because they're looking for your day planner, because they're looking for your courses. And that's not why somebody's on Facebook. That's on Google. But at any given time, less than 5% of people are actually searching, of your target audience are actually searching on Google. So we want to be on Facebook to get that brand awareness out there. So what Ryan was talking about was not trying to, if you're looking at a funnel, expecting that somebody's going to meet you the first time and they're going to open up their wallet and they're going to give you $40. That's so rare. But then at the same time, we also don't want to do the top of the funnel, which is just, let's let everybody know about ourselves. And here's a really great and incredible blog article, because then you're going to be dissatisfied of putting thousands of dollars into Facebook and not seeing any conversion. So what Ryan's talking about is this disruptive marketing that's also lead generation in nature, right? It's that beginning of that courtship where you're actually not just walking into a restaurant, standing up on a table and saying, hey, look at me, but you're actually going up to somebody next, at the bar, and you're saying, hey, I'm John, what brings you here? And you start that relationship by giving them something in return for something. So they're going to give you their first name and their email address, and you're going to give them a 10 steps to overcoming homeschooling strife, or 10 steps to better build your domestic church, right? If you're selling products and you're selling, crucifixes and artwork and things like that, start with a lead generation that you're paying to get email addresses, and then you can work with those email addresses. You now own them. I know that you guys have heard on the news that, Apple and Facebook are having this issue. You guys have probably tried boosting a post and things like that, not seen success. That is common across all of our clients as they come to us. And really it's because some of these basics are missed. They're either trying to go too far down in the funnel or too far up in the funnel, and they don't have that expectation managed appropriately. So I think that is such an incredible point to mention. When marketing on Facebook, you are disrupting them, right? They're there to see their friends, to see what their news source is, what's happening. You're stopping their scroll, and you're giving them something free in return for an email address that's gonna pay dividends much greater later down the road. In most, the majority of all cases.
Yeah, your advertisements probably have less than a half a second to make somebody stop and consider you. If your advertisements are so complex, or you're having them consider so many things, they're just going to scroll right past you, because that's the nature of people on social media. Scroll, 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 scroll until something catches my eyes, and then you stop. I think the most important fundamental of social media marketing is stopping the scroll. And John, you mentioned that. So your advertisements, they have to be clear, bold, simplistic, so that they jump off that screen and they stop that person from scrolling so they can at least consider. Because if you have a picture with 1,800 words on it and a bunch of text, they're going to go right past it.
Yeah. And they need to be
Absolutely.
continuous within have that continuity within your brand. There's a great Instagram page, Ave Rosaries, that if you take a look at that, you see that every single post, including their quotes, including their products, all of these things match their brand. They are solving a problem. And when I see them, and so when your ads start going in there, you want to have that message consistency. You want to have that image consistency. And that's another thing that we see so frequently, is that ads are just so off brand. It's almost schizophrenic, the ads that they're attempting to do. And so keep it on brand, but make sure that we understand what we're trying to accomplish within those ads. And that's so important.
I think it would be a disservice to this crowd that's watching the presentation here if we didn't talk a little bit about some of the recent shifts in Facebook and how to find the people that you're looking to market to and how that's changed. So high level, historically, Facebook has, there are many ways to reach the people that you're after, right? With paid advertising on Facebook. There are location targeting capabilities, age, gender, demographic targeting capabilities, which can help you find like people in Tennessee who are between 35 and 45 and are male, right? But then there are also a bazillion different interest categories that allow you to reach people who have different interests, right? That's one of the things that made Facebook so incredibly powerful. Recently, Facebook has made some pretty big changes with, under the guise of a discrimination policy that has removed the ability for people of faith to market to other people of faith with faith-based interest categories. You used to be able to go onto Facebook's advertising platform and type in all kinds of different Catholic terms and find interest categories that matched and reach Catholics that way. It was incredibly effective. It made a marketer's job a lot simpler.
Mm-hmm.
That is gone. That no longer exists with, as of just a few months ago. It's a brand new policy that has come into effect, and it has dramatically changed the landscape. If you're already marketing on Facebook or have been, you're probably aware of this because suddenly it became really hard for you to reach Catholics. This points back to why it's so important for you to have a solid social media presence, particularly on Facebook and Instagram, because you can use that page and the people who have interacted with that page as an audience to market to. This is also a reason why, and I'll put in a shameless plug for Fuzati, why it's a really good idea if you're struggling to find Catholics to find and partner with an organization like ours, who has dozens and dozens and dozens of very large Catholic Facebook and Instagram accounts that you can also leverage and market to and advertise with. We do this regularly for our clients with all these different pages that we have developed and poured a lot of time into that represent all kinds of different niches within the Catholic space. You can leverage those, create custom audiences and market to those. But I just wanted to point out that this is something that has dramatically changed and made it harder for Catholics and Christians and people of any kind of faith to reach other people with faith-based interest categories. Guys, do you have anything you want to share on that?
Sure.
I completely agree with you, Jordan. I'm glad that you mentioned that. I think it's so important, and it can feel overwhelming. Like there's no way to do social media anymore. And we disagree with that, and we're finding ways, but I can completely understand that's pain point, because it does feel like that. It feels like all of these big tech giants are out to get us and overwhelming and things like that. And they're not in your favor, but they are all about making money. And so if you're going to be giving them money, there are ways of using their algorithm to help you. And these are some of the things that we have found and been able to uncover. But again, I think actually that just is a great point, going back to the running ads for lead generation. I'm still running ads today that are getting 50 cents, 75 cent leads, meaning I'm pulling in email addresses for 50 to 75 cents for clients on Facebook right now with those interests removed. But isn't that great? great because now I'm pulling in all of these leads that I can then market to through emails and market to through retargeting and all of these sort of things. So that just kind of goes back to understanding the landscape and understanding the approach. And maybe the approach is having to change, right? We have to stay up on these trends, but there are still ways of finding people. Until Catholics all throw their computers and their smartphones away and say, I'm going to dumb phones and, and I'm not going to be using my computer anymore, they are still online and we can still find them.
Mm-hmm. Again, yeah, it's about controlling your audience. I think that underscores, John, like you said, the need to build your email list, because no amount of changes is going to take that away from you, the ability to communicate with potential clients. And then also, having those emails allows you to retarget people, allows you to say, look, if they've already shown some interest, that we're having a second conversation. You're not always restarting the conversation. But again, look, a lot of this can be very complex and overwhelming for a lot of groups. If you don't have the skills to do it, find somebody professional who can, because it is not a negotiable that you do these types of things. You cannot succeed in the modern world without some level of digital advertising, because that's the Areopagus of the day. That is the billboards of the day. That's the downtown of today. That's the newspaper of today. All the ways that throughout history, people have got awareness of their offerings and their brand evolves. And right now it's digitally. So if you don't do that, you will become obsolete.
And here's the great thing is we're just talking about $100 here, a few $100s here, et cetera. That's the great thing. You're not having to buy a billboard on 35 or 90 or anything like that. That's going to cost you thousands of dollars and you don't know whether it's going to work. We can literally test things for $200 and we know whether it's going to work or not going to work. And that investment is so small and so worth it in the space today. So that's the other thing is a very positive is that we can test these things at just such a small amount of money and learn things that in years past, it took $10,000 to discover.
Right. And I think that's going to point to one of the other talks that we're going to have talking about the difference between macro and micro marketing. And that's kind of a little bit of a prefigurement of that discussion.
Excellent. So I think that wraps up our conversation on social media marketing, on actually having a presence in the social media space, picking platforms within a demographic that works for you, posting regularly, sticking within brand, solving a problem, presenting yourself as the guide on these platforms, finding somebody that can help you. It doesn't have to be a huge marketing agency. It can be, a designer and a copywriter, and that understand your mission, understand your products and your focus. And then when we shift to paid ad, it's important to understand how to use paid advertising to your benefit. You've got Facebook and Instagram, which is going to be disruptive marketing. You're stopping the scroll and knowing that they're not there looking for your product. What can you offer them that's going to intrigue them and keep them wanting more from you? That's where we like these white pages or these ebooks or these prayer cards or things like that, that you can give away for free. And then there's the search marketing or intent-based marketing, on Google. People are looking for Catholic Homeschool Conference, things like that. They're searching it and being there, but that's another area and focus. So just kind of having these things in your mind is going to help you jump in and approach these things with a degree of professionalism, a degree of strategy, and a degree of success. And I would also add that we all learn, right? Find those Instagram pages and Facebook pages that are doing well. Find those ads. You can literally just type ad library Facebook, and you can find every single ad that any organization, Catholic or non-Catholic, is running right now. Take a look at them, learn from their experience, learn from what they're doing, find something that matches your brand, and then just start small. Start with a little bit of ad spend. It doesn't have to be in the thousands of dollars. It can definitely be in the hundreds, and you can learn a lot. Don't, however, when you put $200 in and you don't see that success, just assume that Facebook and Instagram don't work for me. That we get that all the time. And it's really just because that learned experience turned into a definitive conclusion. And really, that's not the point of it. So, just take these sort of things, talk to other people, take a look at other accounts, learn from others' experiences, and that can really help you bring a lot of success to your organization, to your ministry, your products, your services, et cetera. So.